Welcome to this episode of Wipeout's Tales from the Superyacht Laundry. I am joined today by the gorgeous Lorna Di Lieto. Hi, how are you
Hello.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to get you on because you are one of those very unusual ladies that works in technology. You work for computer network defense. We were just talking about it before this recording started, how that's quite easy to roll off the tongue.
Or not.
So we call it CND for
Yeah.
short.
And I think everybody else is surprised I'm in tech as well, because I'm just like you. So it's a shock for everyone.
That makes me feel good. It really does. We met for the first time at the Southampton event.
That's right. Great event. That was
You,
brilliant.
you were proper moved by it, weren't you? You
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
It was powerful. I couldn't believe how many people attended. And yeah, it was so nice. I mean, just on my table alone, the 10 women, they all had such a nice story. And they were lovely as well. Everyone was just so open and honest. It was a really good event.
But it was that the Southampton one was kind of when we moved up a gear and we really fine tuned what we were about, getting
Yeah.
ladies together, because we talked about it. There's a bit of isolation in the beginning when you're stepping out of the yachting industry. But before we go into that, what were you doing before yachts came into your life?
I was working for a rope manufacturing company in the south of England. Sorry.
Rope for what? What kind of
For
rope?
all sorts. But I was on the maritime leg. So I was looking after like bespoke ropes for racer yachts. So
Okay.
2 yachts would race each other, like Artemis and Matador. They'd race each other. I don't know what they were doing. I'll be honest, I had no idea where I was sending these ropes or what it was about. So when I went on a business trip with my then manager, I remember turning up in Antibes and seeing the super yachts for the first time. And I was like, what's that? What's going on? And he explained, and he was like, oh, we don't really deal with them because they do dock lines. They're not really like sail yachts or anything like that. And I just remember seeing a girl walking along with a tray on the outside. And I was like, what's she doing? He was like, oh, she'll be crew. And I was like, oh, I can make tea. In my head, I was like, I'm getting on there. So I went to a race team in France saying, can I be your stewardess? Can I make tea for you? And I remember going over to meet them. It was at the Paris Boat Show. And I went over and I was like, hi, I'm Lorna. I've been emailing you. I want to join your boat. And he just grabbed my bicep and was like, no. And I was like, sorry? And he was like, no, 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 no. And I was like, oh, I just want to make tea. And he was like, no, we need strong people. We need athletes. And I was like, oh. And I was thinking, that girl didn't athlete. Oh, it was brutal. But then I realised that super yachts is a totally different category to sail yachts. To be fair, it was all before Teams and things like that. So there wasn't much communication other than me being very positive and I can do anything.
Quite an impulsive person, because that's quite like, how old were you when you were doing this?
That was like 23. So 23, 24. To be fair, I was just determined. Once I'd seen that girl, I was determined to do whatever, but not fully understanding anything. Then I realised I had to get my STCW and I didn't have any money to even get the course because they were £1,000 or 1,500 and everything I got paid went on rent and things like that. So I remember going to the bank and being like, I'll get a loan out. And in the bank, there was one of the guys I used to go to school with. And he was like, Lorna, and we were chatting away. And I was telling him, I want to go and work on these yachts. I'm going to do this course. I'm going to go and get a job out in south of France. And he said to me, he was like, I'm going to pretend you didn't say any of that and that you're going to buy a car and stay at the company you are, because it was like a huge risk for the bank to give me a loan. So God, he did. And thank God it was with him, that meeting. The next day I had the money in my account and I went and did it.
Oh my God, that's like fate. Like, you literally were like, you can't say that.
I was literally like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go out to France. And he was like, whoa, no, Lorna.
What's amazing?
Yeah. So then, I went out and dock walked like the originals.
The originals. Oh, I just made up an original.
Yeah, with the OGs, the ones I actually don't want.
I got really bored. Yeah, no, I was like, what? Why are we doing this? I thought that's what the recruiters, why I went into the recruitment companies to be looked down on and spoken to. Still, I thought that was the gateway kind of thing.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, walking around
Oh
to
no,
say
I got
small.
the raw deal and went to the boats and got spoken to like that.
What you kind of ended up in France or?
Yeah, so I moved to France when I was a young girl. We had a bed and breakfast as a family out in France from the age of 12. And then as soon as I finished my studies, I went off and traveled and didn't want to come home. So I already had that bug. So yeah. So when I came home and started getting an office job, I was like very itchy feet. I was like, well,
I suppose it kind of explains your non-fear because, you know, you'd already experienced France. It's not an intimidating place for you. So it makes complete sense. Be a bit braver and doing it because otherwise you would have come across a bit of lunatic if you'd never been. That makes sense now that you're obviously, you know, you're already exposed. It's just the detail and getting the job. So how long did it
yeah.
take you to get a job?
How long was it? So it wasn't long at all. I think it was a couple of weeks. And my first job was in Fontvier. I'm going to forget all the names now, but it was in Fontvier and I was living out of a car. So I wasn't in the hostels or anything like that. I was parking up and just sleeping in the back of a car and then doing the dock walk. And the first job was they weren't going to pay me, but I could live on board if I just tidied the kitchen and made some food. And that was it. And I loved it. And that was like a week of that. And then I got my first proper job. So it was good. It was beneficial.
Yeah, that's really good. Like, so you got free accommodation to out the gate. That's, you know, at the end of the day, in the beginning, you just got to get on board and do anything, you know, a day.
That's it.
It's like, obviously, it's all new to you. First job on board, like, was it a big, what kind of vessel were you on to start with?
It was like a 30 meter, so it wasn't too big. I was in the kitchen. My parents are chefs, so it's not daunting to me to be in a kitchen, but I definitely am not a chef. But what they wanted was more for like crew. So it was easy food, just healthy, clean food. But I do remember the owner came on and the captain was like, "Can you make me a cake?" And I was like, "What?" I was thinking, "Oh my God, I don't, yeah, okay, I'll make a cake." So I was like, and obviously it's not my galley, so I didn't go shopping. I'm like getting bits from all the other chefs they've had on board. And I made this cake and I remember like it going out and like me texting my dad and being like, "You won't believe I've just made a cake for the owner." And he was like so proud. Yeah, it was yeah. To be fair, the captain came back with an empty plate and I was like, "Oh my God, he ate it." And he was like, "No, I just threw it over the side." And I was like, "Oh," but he's joking. He was joking.
Oh, that's a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
So slotted into life on sea quite easily.
Yeah,
Did you
then
stay
that's
there long?
it. What, on the ocean? I think I've got like some sort of number. I'm dyslexia because I don't remember the dates of when I started on things, but I think I was away for about 4 years on my first proper boat. And then I did a few temp jobs and kind of went home. And then I left the industry and then I went back, as everyone does, to get more money.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was with one incredible family for a long time. That was my first proper boat and they really looked after me. I've actually been very lucky with who have owned the boats, and my land-based jobs have always had really nice bosses. I've always picked really good places to work, so I haven't wanted to leave.
No.
So I've been quite lucky.
You're a good, reliable crew member.
Yeah. Oh,
So when you started, when you left the first time, what was your thinking behind? Well, when you attempted to leave the industry the first time,
yeah,
was it
tempted.
for a
Good choice
man?
of words. Well, the first time, actually, it was a family thing. So my sister's little boy wasn't very well. So it was like immediate that I wanted to go home and just be supportive and be there. But actually, it was my first mate that pulled me back onto the boat. And he said to me, he was, "Okay, look, I know what's going on is actually really horrific and you want to be home, you want to be with your sister." But he said, "Think of it this way. You're bringing in money and you could be a financial help and support to your family." And he was speaking from his heart and from previous experience. And do you know what? It was the best advice he could have given me, because then I was able to, I could fly back whenever I needed to. I could pay for things. Actually didn't need to in the end, because the UK is so wonderfully set up for with the NHS and what have you, and charities and stuff. So yeah, so I did try and leave for that, but I got pulled back by the first mate for that reason. And just generally, I just didn't settle back at home. I think one of the hardest things was you had all these fabulous stories and wonderful things that you've done, and coming home and you almost start muting yourself. I couldn't even say stories because they were just sounded too extreme or too wild and wacky that I just was so unrelatable.
Self-editing is a thing. I mean, we've spoken about it with lots of individuals. That's one of the reasons why the events have always gone really, really well when you get a group of ex-crew members together, because you don't have to edit. And you don't realize how much you are editing until you are back with crew.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to sound like a show off. When you're
Yeah.
trying to integrate into people, oh, when I was in St. Bart's or I was
Yeah.
in Monaco this time. And I've told this story a few times, telling a friend about a time in Monaco where I was not happy at all, like having a really, really rough time. But as soon as I said Monaco, did you see any celebs?
Oh,
Did you?
yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
can't, like in their mind,
Totally
you
get
can't
it.
possibly be having the worst time of your life in Monaco. Because it's Monaco, you should be drinking Aperol Spritz on the back of a boat. And you're like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you do tweet, I suppose. You kind of pull out the bits that you think might go through. It can be quite disheartening, especially when you're coming away from something you loved so much. Do you know what I mean? It's a massive
Yeah.
part of your life and your journey. And you're kind of not erasing it, but you're not giving it its due, I suppose. That's the kind of thing, which makes it quite
Absolutely.
tragic in a way.
It is. It's sad. But I think I've heard this from people that just go traveling as well, like not just yachts, but people that go off and do like traveling. They come home and they kind of feel a bit lost when they get back to their friends, because nothing's changed for the friends, but so much has changed for the individual. So yachting definitely has that. And like you say, it's actually quite tragic because you spend so many years as well gaining valuable experience and, well, stories as well. And
Yeah.
then I think that's why I
Yeah.
was quite excited to be asked to go on this, because I was like, oh, I can speak freely about it.
I've covered it so many times. It is one of those things that women don't understand. It's part of leaving, that you kind of end up editing yourself. And I'm pretty sure that it's probably the same for people that have left the military and things like
Yeah.
that. Like, you can only understand what it's like to be in the military if you're in it. You know,
Yeah.
it is a very unique experience. It's a lifestyle. It's all of those things. And I imagine people in the military probably feel slightly similar. You know, you have, as individuals, when you work in these environments, your own banter.
Yeah.
You know, there's language that we won't even think about that we use on board, which, you know, people on land wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about, which can be quite off-putting as well when you catch yourself using terminology and phrases or you go, you're like, everybody's just looking at you going,
Yeah,
"You doing
exactly.
that?"
Yeah.
So,
No, it's so true.
psychologically, that also plays a big part in the adjustment. Like, I've got a lady called Emma coming on who lives in London. She left the industry and set up Living Organised. And she gets women that are coming out of the industry that want to earn a bit of cash, obviously around London area. I just wanted to go and work for her because basically
Okay.
that's a real opportunity to just get together as like girls would have on board, and you clean house or
Yeah.
help someone move house. And I'm like, gee, that sounds quite fun. A bit of bands while you're putting stuff together.
Absolutely.
Through that camaraderie, you could experience that as again. And when she was saying, obviously she's coming up in a future episode, I'm like, I would have loved to have done that. I think that probably would have, but that's a really random thing to say. I would quite like to go and clean with a bunch of girls.
No, but it's that camaraderie and that, like you said, banter. You definitely miss that. Definitely do. So yeah, that was hard for like coming out, and I think that's what drew me back. And obviously the work. I mean, the money, should I say? I also did a catering company, so I tried to start a catering company. with my sister and my mum. It was really hard to get it off the ground. After that, I went into private housing. So I went to be a chef in a private house in Henley. And I was there for a long time. I was there for a couple of years and I really loved it. Really great experience. Very much, what I was used to with the yachting world. It was that kind of clientele and loved it. So much fun. So much fun. Have a look into it. Yeah, sorry, I digress. Yeah, so I was chefing in Henley, loved it. Bought my little house in Reading. And then I rekindled things with my now husband. And I wanted to start a family. And he was like, we haven't really got the money, Lorna. And I was like, I can get money. I'll go back yachting. So I
Money's
did.
no
So I went
problem.
back. I was like, money's not an issue. So I did. I went back for another year and got all the money for like a bigger house deposit. And yeah.
So wait,
paid
so
it.
your other half was on board as well?
No. He's a fireman in
No.
London. So he stayed behind. I think it was hard, but we made it work.
He's a fireman. Is he still a fireman in London?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fireman. So was he okay with you like going on boats? Did he understand what it was
We
or?
met each other a long time ago. So we met when we were 18 and we went out with each other then. And then we kind of broke up and stayed in contact. And I kept telling him to come on yachts. He was destined to be a firefighter. He'd always wanted to be one. So that was his thing. So yeah, he did know. And I don't think he was happy about it, but I don't think he had a choice. If I decided to go back, I decided to go back. So
you've got to do what you want to do. If you want a house, it's all pretty expensive. It's only getting more expensive.
At the time, it was relevant and it was expensive. I don't know how people do it without going into yachting, I'll be honest.
Well, obviously the salaries and stuff, the reports coming out, boats have been a bit tight again.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah. The lower levels, it's always the junior stews and stuff like that and deckies. Just
fair, is it?
It's not really, considering, I mean, I spoke to somebody the other day and they're still 30 some days leave. I'm like, who is that even illegal still? Even back in my day, it was 5-1. I thought that was horrendous.
Yeah.
Some boats are still offering like 1 month out of the year.
That's mad, isn't it?
When we've obviously made it very clear that that's probably a bit too much work for somebody to do, even if they're young.
That's it.
It is. 5-1 is bare minimum. Anybody who's listening to this, if you're not on 5-1, get off that boat. I mean, rotation didn't exist when I was on board. But at least
even in my last boat, I didn't get rotation when I was leaving. But you definitely weren't worked as hard. But I remember when I first joined, it was 30 days holiday and it was terrible wage. But at the time, I was like, I'll get my foot through the door. This is it. You do. Which is terrible because it just lowers the standard for everybody, which is not right. So I'm not recommending that.
No. So, yeah, we bought a house. You live in the dream. So what were you going to do as a job? Did you have?
So I bought a cleaning company before I left. So I bought a cleaning company in London with my first couple of wage packets when I went back to yachting, so that I was preparing myself to leave. And I dealt with it while I was on board. So I was like chief steward and owning this company, which was actually mental. It was working and it was enough for me to come home to and have a wage still. So then I came back and then COVID hit. And literally, I mean, the one thing we couldn't do was see each other. So I couldn't have my cleaners go into people's houses. It was just horrific.
You just wiped your business out completely in one stroke.
We continued to keep going. We managed to get through it. And I sold the cleaning company last year, actually, which was really good. But it was definitely something just to get me through maternity, get me back to land. I hated it. And I take my hat off to all these women that come on your podcast who have got businesses because, it's not for me. Sunday night, the amount of calls I'd get to be someone was sick or you were never off the clock. You are always working when you've got your own business. And yeah, I didn't see it as freedom at all. It felt like I'd gone from.
It's not for everyone. I mean, I've spoken, and this is the thing with women that are coming ashore, you are in the prime, you could be in a prime position to take on or create a business. Don't get me wrong. You've got nothing else. You are literally a blank slate most of the time.
Yeah.
But what I think a lot of women don't understand or aren't really aware of, that owning your own business is basically as being a cap. You don't get to switch off ever. My husband runs his own business, has done. It encroaches on everything, every family holiday. It's not like being an employee. And for some people that works. If it's a passion project, having now spoken to hundreds of women that have started businesses and stuff like that. If it's a passion project that really lights you up, then for sure, it can definitely be the right path for you. But what I'm discovering after talking to women is you come from an intense team player environment. It's not the same. And you don't have the support as a business owner. A lot of the time it's just you and you're making the decisions and so it can be a real struggle.
Yeah. And you put everything like you've saved up from yachting as well. Like you put all that money into it as well. It's such an investment that you just have to make it work. And it's just such a pressure, the break that I need after yachting.
And also you're having children at the same time. It's not probably an ideal combination. Very intense work with raising a human being. Kind of sabotage each other. I mean,
Very intense.
Before this recording, we spoke for a long time about where women are at. We are the generation that were promised you can have everything, but you have to work like you don't have children, and then you have to raise children like you don't work. It's impossible. So women really, again, have these huge decisions to make about themselves and where their compromise is. But I think our environment at the moment is too heavily focused on career because obviously the cost of living and everything else. I think society is really putting down children and having children. It is hard. And obviously there's no cash reward from having a child.
No.
But you shouldn't be looking at them as an either or. You should, do you know what I mean? They should be on
should be able to help. Yeah, exactly.
And as we both said, motherhood is incredible.
It is, absolutely. And I'm so glad, so glad that I did have the opportunity to do it. And I wouldn't obviously change it for the world at all. And like that cleaning company, I can't knock it because it got me through. It paid bills. The fact that I didn't love it was actually probably a good thing because I got to care more for my little girl, my little boy. So that helped. I remember, how I got to work for Computer Network Defense, I hadn't looked at my LinkedIn for ages. And I was literally sat breastfeeding at the computer. And I opened my LinkedIn just to have a look. Anyway, I saw an email from somebody from CND. And because on my profile, I was a yacht stewardess, or I was a chief stew on there. They were like, the message was, "Hi, Lorna, we're looking for an ex-yachtie who can help us with some land-based work." And I was literally like, I'm an ex-yachtie, I'm land-based. So I just sent back and said, well, I am, but I'm not at all. I don't know anything about cybersecurity. How can I help? I know about yachts, so what can I do to help? And then they sent me through this job spec and said, why didn't you consider applying? So I went through this job spec and it was about cybersecurity. And I remember telling my family, I was like, I might go for this job in cybersecurity. And my brother's like really high up in cybersecurity. And he was like, what? He was like, no, Lorna, they need an ex-yachtie. I might as well go for it. A bit of fate that has come to me. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I still had a 9-month-old at that point. And then, I went through the interview process, which was really grueling as well. It was actually quite an intense. You had 4 people. You had to do a presentation. You got given a brief.
I mean, it was on because I always hated those. Give a presentation on yourself. I'm like, oh no.
Oh no, it wasn't on. It was on technical. It was just how would you? It was something to do with yachting and cybersecurity. I can't actually remember exactly what the question was, but it was daunting. Don't get me wrong, but I tell you what, I flipping researched it. I was like, I practiced my presentation so much. I really didn't think I was going to get the job. But I thought, well, you know, I'll use this as practice anyway for the next few interviews that I do. But the more I was doing my presentation, the more I was researching and planning and everything, the more I wanted it. And I was like, this is so out of my league, but I'm going to go for it. And even my child, Elodie, she was sick that morning. So I had to get my husband's uncle to come round, and he just walked the pram up and down the road while I was doing my interviews. It was just so many things were not meant to go right. But I had my interview and yeah, it went really well. And then I did another one and then I got offered the job. And now my boss tells me I was the wild card. He was like, "You're just this random person that they were, I don't know, put her in." And actually
Yeah,
I
I
got the
know.
job. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really good. So, and that was 3 or 4 years ago, I think now.
But you think, obviously, with yachting, so when you join a new boat, you just get stuck in. That's what you have to do. I mean, I joined a couple of boats mid-charter who literally are in. You shorts on, t-shirt on, right?
Yeah.
Where's the laundry? Crack on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think a business, obviously not having initially any real experience hiring ex-yachties, could be quite surprised on how it's the can-do attitude?
That's it. And it was my boss, when I asked him about doing this podcast, he said, make sure you let them know that he wants to employ yachties because he really likes the attitude that we bring. And it is that can-do attitude. And it is very much, we just get things done. I mean, since I've been employed now, we've got 3 more yachties and he's so pleased with them. And everyone in the company, I think, is pleased. And it is that transfer of skills. We are problem solvers. We're absolutely natural problem solvers. And that's great.
Well, that's obviously one of the things we've talked about quite a lot, about trying to get across what we're capable of. When you put it down on the CV, it's kind of what we did. But really, you should it's our approach and how we did it is more what you need to focus on when you're looking at a CV. Because I also think with ex-crew members, you focus on too much on the detail of the job in trying to explain, and it's not. It's more the attitude. And I think even with, what are they called? Gen Zers and stuff that are working on board now, they get a really bad rep on land, to be fair. But even them push through the yachty process, if they've survived on board, they'll come out with a work ethic that's probably quite unusual for their generation, because it is an all-encompassing experience. You have to work a certain way.
That's it. And I think the one thing that has really helped with myself being in tech, like I said to you, I'm not a techie person at all. And one thing I like to pride myself on is that I do have emotional intelligence. And so when I'm networking, it's so much more, it feels natural for me to just go and strike up a conversation with whoever in that networking room. And generally people that go into tech like to be behind the screen, like to not have that interface. So I'm anomaly really in that whole situation. It's what creates business as well, because I get in front of the people, I talk to people. I'm absolutely not tech, and I make that very obvious to start. I say, oh, I'm not technical. But behind me, I have a team of very, very clever people, and they're so supportive. But I've made that interaction, and that's where I also don't speak geek. So like when people are telling me their problems, it's in layman terms, and then I'll go back and say it to the team behind, and then they understand how to sort it out. And I think that comes from yachting.
You're a translator.
I translate Greek, geek, not Greek. That's true. And it's so powerful. And I think that is generally from the amount of times that you go to the end of the passerelle, or there's like in Cannes Film Festival, you never know who's coming on board. And you're just like, hi, how are you? It could be massive top dog producer, or it could be someone's security guard. You don't know, but you treat them the same, and you
to the point where you don't
have that
care.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, look, how much long am I going to be awake for?
God, do you need a drink? Make sure your shoes are off. You know, not interested in your life story at all. Do you want a drink?
That's it.
I actually think, to anybody who's on board and is listening to this, that you being able to approach human beings is now becoming a key skill that people will pay for. Because, and I use as a prime example, I'm trying to do some marketing stuff for my husband's business, and I'm trying to talk to these creative people, and they keep emailing me. Can we just book the call and then we can chat about it? No. Before we do the call, can you send me this, and this? I'm like, yeah, but I could just tell you.
Yeah.
Just book the call. You're not going to prepare anything because this is the initial bit. Just talk. I know people keep talking about it when they're talking about Gen Z and stuff like that, and the COVID effect. You've got a whole bunch of teenagers that would have had their prime exposure to the working world kind of stopped. And it hasn't gone back to the full experience of what we went through as youngsters. So yachties are just going to get more and more valuable as long as you having the skill to be able to talk to a human being. Who would have thought it?
It's mad, isn't it?
Becomes an asset. Not being afraid to just go, hi, do you want a drink?
This is it. But I also think another thing you really gain from yachting is reading the room. So like, you're obviously, these people are going on their private yachts to relax, to take time away, to have a holiday. Anything can happen. So they could have an argument with their family. They could, I don't know, flirt with someone or whatever. It's knowing that when you go into that room to either offer a drink or offer your service or whatever, clean something up, it's knowing how to kind of be a wallflower and read the room and be, okay, there's some tension going on. I'm just going to back out. Right. They've seen me, so they know if they need a drink. But also, some families might want you to be the life and soul of the party. So you've got to come in and get the energy going and be like, So it's, and I think that is another key to
amount of time
coming out into the real world.
Into the main salon, and there's kind of this weird vibe. And you're like, anyway, and then they look to you for to diffuse the weird tension. Oh yeah, no, I'll have a drink. They didn't even want a drink, but they're like, oh no, just talking. And what are we for dinner? And where are we cruising tomorrow? Yeah, and to lean into that, to have, you said, the emotional intelligence to go, oh, okay, well, they obviously want to chat because he doesn't want to talk to that man anymore because he doesn't actually like it. Exactly. And that, how do you put that on a CD? And obviously, I've said on many episodes, we are badass at a lot of things, but they're not really, I don't know, maybe the world is changing because everybody's thinking about things in a lot more detail. So when you start saying, put on your CV, I have insane emotional intelligence, it could backfire wildly, but
take full advantage of.
Talk to these assholes. Because, we are really capable. You could be dealing with a situation on board which is akin to your local boozer when people are hammered and just really awkward. And if you could end up being counsellor to somebody who's crying on the aft deck. That spectrum is vast.
Which is it.
In between solving problems to make sure you've got the party with 100 people with no ice. Is it?
It makes sense.
It's just exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And you jumping onto a boat and I'll just go on and get on there. Right, we've got a party of 50 people. Okay, where's the wine? Oh no, we haven't got any yet. What? So there's me and another girl going with 4 wheelie trolleys. Well, we had 2. We had to buy 2 others to then try and ram as many bottles of Prosecco and other things, then wheel it back.
My God. In a foreign country, and you just
it was an Italian, you can't really say too much, but it was like Italian ran. They were like, we're gonna do this. I'm like, great. And it's such a little Italian accent. They still need to go get the things. The things. This is Monaco Yacht Show. Everybody's busy. If I get a provider, they're gonna go, maybe next week, or it'll cost you 20 grand. It just cracks me up. I love
mad. I remember we went to Cannes Film Festival and one of our guests specifically wanted sugar-free Red Bull. And obviously Cannes Film Festival, none of the shops had anything. We were going boat to boat with 500 euros. Can we get 3 cans? It's just madness. But we problem solved. We did it. We threw money at it.
If you were walking around shops and stuff like that, they'd be like, what are you talking about? But if you go to the back of the boat and say, don't ask, just have you got it's sugar-free petrol. They go, yeah. You understand your pain here. Have a case.
Down into the bilge they go. Yeah.
true though. No, but like you said, these stories are only funny to us.
This is it. Everyone else are like, no, that didn't happen. I'm like, well,
It did. So your boss has completely embraced ex crew members. You've got
yeah.
you must have done a good job because he's hired more.
Yeah. I mean, by me going on maternity was also very helpful. But I
See,
think it was actually a management company that told him to go down the route of reaching out to crew, because basically we'd worked with maritime since a long, long time, but it was a super yacht fleet that came to us, and it was the hierarchy they didn't understand. And that's why, like, little things like he didn't know who he was talking to. So he'd be talking to the management, and I'd be like, well, have you spoken to the engineer? Because he's the one that's going to sign off on. And they're like, well, why wouldn't the captain? I'm like, well, the captain will, but the engineer will have to have the information to give to the captain. And it's all those tiny bits of information that
yeah.
are key to being able to give a good service to a yacht. And little things.
And also not flinching when they kind of like, okay, go ahead. And then it's the family office that is paying for it. Don't be surprised where the money comes from, I suppose.
That's it. Exactly. And also like the fact that they might leave port in an instant and you got to change tack. And it's little things like that where our land-based clients, that's never going to be the case. So just having someone know that, or like the rotation, doing training for crew, but knowing that they're going to rotate in 2 months' time and you're going to have to redo that training. And it's little things, and it's been very helpful. But one of the biggest tasks I had when I first joined was just to talk about a day in the life of me as a yachtie. And I remember saying to my boss, when we used to come into port, the main thing we would do on our boat was, because we didn't have amazing systems back then, it was just normal laptops. We'd take our hard drive full of movies and we'd pass it along the port to all the other yachts, and we'd take their hard drive and get all new movies for the boat. And then we'd leave port and we'd have a whole 100 new movies and everyone would be really happy. And I remember telling my boss, and he was like, you did what? And he was like, you put in somebody else's hard drive into the system boat, no questions asked. And I was like, yeah. I didn't bat an eyelid. And he was like, okay, right. Okay, this is good. What else on it? Tell me more. Yeah. This is it. And the thing is we weren't trained as crew on anything about cybersecurity or how systems were connected to the internet or how people move naturally.
Internet. Back in my day, you hadn't got an internet when we were in port.
This is true.
If there was internet on the boat while you were out at sea, but probably only a few miles off, it was only for the owner, the guest, and the captain. They didn't let us use it. The amount of times I'm in the bloody laundry ironing, and then I was like, oh, yes.
Minutes.
Some messages will come through because we're passing some point somewhere, and
you'd be like, Mom, I'm alive. And then she wouldn't hear from you for another 4 days.
I remember one boat we worked on, the engineer, we'd all left the boat, turned into an absolute nightmare. And this guy that took it over was saying that he was being attacked by the Americans and they'd got into his yacht. And we'd left that boat. The engineer was like, that's impossible. That system was so awful. He's talking absolute rubbish. Like, you can't connect into that boat because they never updated anything anyway. You're better off going in there with a pen and a pencil.
But yeah, no, it's totally different though now. Nowadays, everything seems to be connected. Everything is interconnected. And yeah, it's very important nowadays.
Obviously, the world is changing. I mean, let's say in the last, 2 years, Starlink's changed the game again. I'm pretty sure I've been told they've undercut everybody and
really?
We're taking control, because his satellites are better than everybody else's, I guess. There's more of them. We've got Starlink in our house because BT can't connect to us.
This is it. This is it. See, so you can't knock it really if it's working. This is the thing.
Yeah, love him or hate him, old Elon, but it's changing at such a vast rate of knots. I guess you're going to have to be a lot more technical eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that C&D is great for is training us. So I'm in more of a business development role now. So they've kind of moved me onto a side of the business, which is using a platform called Splunk, which is a very unfortunate word. So this is what's really funny is obviously when I was building up the maritime side of the business, I was going to loads of different events, and obviously Yacht Pals of Wisdom, women in yachting and blah, blah, blah. We were doing all those events to promote ourselves and just figure out what the industry needed. And I remember telling my husband when I came back, I was like, oh, they're going to get me into a different side of the business. I said, I'm going to be looking after the spunk clients. Sponsored by Splunk. Brilliant. Oh dear.
In this day and age, to get attention, that's bants. As far as I'm
I
concerned, that's
know.
bants on board. And there is loads of bants, and there's loads of different things on board boats that have funny names and stuff like that. So the yachties, amazing.
They'd love that.
They'd love that for sure.
Yeah.
You don't take life too seriously on board.
This is it.
You know,
No, it's
if
so
you
true.
didn't have banter on board, the job would be horrendous. I think that's grounds to leave a boat. If you don't have good banter on boat, I'd leave. I think that's common for a lot of people. When everybody talks about the vibe just changed on board. So basically, some killjoys just ruined everything.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, a bad egg. But that can happen in land-based jobs as well.
True.
You've got to have that fun. But I suppose you say with yachting, it's 24/7.
You go the bands. It's quite unique on board, but it gets you through some really, really tough times.
Long times, yeah. Tough times. That's being serious, yeah.
What 3 things would you give as advice to either a woman on board or thinking about the industry? What are your 3 bits that 3 bits of advice? Could be on board, could be what are your takeaways from your time in yachting. Could be about
okay, 3 things. First thing that jumps to mind is prepare. If you're wanting to leave, prepare to leave. When I say that, I mean save money, either requalify, know where you're going, have somewhere to live, little things like that. So prepare to leave is my first one. That can be done like a year in advance. If you know where you're going, you're more likely to say no to that night out in Monaco or that night out in St. Bart's. You can't start saving your money.
you still go out, but you don't
Just don't be
buy the magnums and stuff. Rein it in a little bit. See whether somebody else buys the magnum.
My next advice is network. You never quite know who's going to be important to you later on. So be kind to everyone and network and really use that, because it's a small industry and that can be detriment to, because you'd be well known. Maybe that's not a good thing when you leave, but it's a small industry that could be a real positive. And I'll give you an example. So a couple of years ago, I knew a deckhand from one of the boats. He hasn't done anything out of yachting. He's still doing a bosun's job now. But at a supper club, he introduced me to somebody he knew, and it was a captain. And now that captain's one of our clients. And you're just never going to know how that networking is going to work. So I think treat everybody with respect and kindness, because that can really go a long way.
Yeah. And if you go out on TV, use an alter ego name if you get wild. That's what we did.
That's amazing.
Don't use your name. When it's that time in the night where you're like, oh, this is all getting a little bit. That's when your names come out.
In Monaco, we never used to say we were yachties. So we didn't just change our name, we changed careers as well. And I remember going out and there'd be one of the girls and they'd be like, does she also work at the bank? And I'd be like, yes, I do. So bad. And then what's my third one? Travel. Holiday. Take all the holidays. Travel to where you want to go to before you become a parent. Because you can still do it as a parent. It's just a lot harder and a lot more tiring.
And more expensive.
And loads more expensive.
Also,
it'll be a different kind of holiday.
I mean, I 100% family agree with that. If there's stuff on your wish list that you want to go and see, try really hard, especially the obscure ones. Like, I really wanted to go to Peru. There's no way I'd take my daughter to Peru.
No.
You know, even if Paddington does come from that, we're not going. Because
Such a mum comment. I love
it. Like, no. I know loads of people take their kids to Asia, but I don't know, maybe when she's a bit older, but not, it's not going to be anytime soon. I love more Bali. The Australians say loads of cool things about Bali, and I never got managed to get there.
This is it. And like Sam and I, we still like on the dark nights and no one's asleep and everyone's poorly. And we, you can reminisce about like holidays we had in Aruba or like Miami. And we're like, oh, thank God we did that. It was so long ago, but that really has helped get through these long nights. So yeah, I just, yeah, do the things you want to do before you become a parent.
Well, as many of them as you can. Unfortunately with travel, the list only ever gets longer. You're like,
I know.
it'd be quite nice to go there. But obviously when priorities change and bank balances change, can't go that way.
This is it.
Right. Do you have, to finish up, a wild story, an oh God moment from time on board? And you're just like, literally like, what just happened? Can be positive or negative. But, whatever springs to mind. A bit of a wild story that only really happens in yachting.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of something that won't make me lose my current job or break any NDA. The only reason I'm saying this one is I actually think this person's passed now. So I feel very safe saying this. So it wasn't like a positive or a negative. It was just a real moment where I was like, whoa. And I think for me, it taught me about intuition. I was like a junior stew. So I was doing cabins and laundry. And this one time the guests had sat down for lunch and I was walking on the outside of the boat. And I just managed to just look in at the guests, split second, nothing too crazy. But in that moment, I saw the madame of the yacht get up from the table and just something didn't seem right. And I just thought, that's odd. That's really odd. Like she never leaves a table. She's always very courteous of her guests. So like to leave in the middle of a meal is just so out of character for her. But I was a junior stew. I was like, this is out of my realms. So anyway, I went down, took the towels down and did all the and I was still thinking, no, something don't feel right. And I thought, let me go back up. So I went back up and I said to the girl on service, I said, oh, is Madame back at the table yet? And she said, no. And I thought, oh, something, and I don't know why, just something in my heart was like, something's not right. So I thought, well, I'm on cabins. I could easily just go and check on her, but be doing cabins really, not being nosy. So I knocked and there was no answer. And so I thought, well, I've got towels. Look like I'm doing cabins, so it's fine. And I went in and I actually found her on the floor in the head. Yeah. And she'd, bless her, been really poorly. And she was an old lady. She was in her 90s and sorry if anyone's eating, she'd messed herself and everywhere. And pure instinct, I just picked her up, popped her in the shower, washed her down, got her into her pajamas, got her into bed. Like we didn't talk the same language at all. And I just knew that she was so ashamed as well. And it was so painful because I didn't know if I was doing too much or because she couldn't even tell me. But I thought, no, if this was my nan or whoever, I'd do this. And it's much better that some young girl that does her laundry washes her rather than her son's coming in or the captain.
Bring loads of attention to it and stuff.
This is it. So I put her into bed and I went out and I explained what had happened. And to that day, she was the best woman I've ever worked for. She was so good. With my sister and her son, when my sister's son was poorly, she flew me home instantly, private jet back to wherever. She looked after me after that. And she was a really good woman. That was the moment that stays with me.
This is one of the things, when people say, oh, you work on yachts and stuff, they're people.
Absolutely.
People. And you can show compassion to somebody who's got loads of money or no money. We're all people. And, you are in their intimate moments. The emotional intelligence comes from you're absorbed into their lives for a period of time.
That's it.
That's actually really nuts. Oh,
sorry. I feel like I brought the after. I bet you didn't see that one coming.
It's why it's important to have these kind of conversations. It's the human element. You could literally be dealing with anything. You can go from dealing with prostitutes in Cannes to dealing with an old lady who's fallen in the bathroom. The spectrum is in, which also makes us super versatile. We've dealt with a whole load of stuff. They should pay us more.
Absolutely. Give us more time off.
Pay us more forever.
I love that idea.
There should be a
Bring that up with Tim.
he finds it hard enough getting people to pay into pensions anyway.
Oh, I can only imagine.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to
Oh,
you.
it has.
We can
Thank
chat
you.
for a very, very long time. And there's hope for all of us to work in technology, basically.
Absolutely.
A lot of these, I think a lot of companies are catching on, especially ones that are kind of connected to the industry anyway, understanding that we are extremely versatile, top of our game when it comes to customer service. So why wouldn't you want a person like that working in your company if they can be a bit flexible with families and whatnot? But yeah, it's been a real good insight into what you do. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been fab having you on. Dear listener,
Thank you.
listening to this episode, I hope you've enjoyed it. There are plenty others for you to dip into. Obviously, like I said, one of the main takeaways, you could work for any company. You know, you're extremely valuable after yachting. If you're out there at the moment trying to work out what to do next, don't have to be the next entrepreneur. You know, you can still be a team player in a different environment. So if you've enjoyed this, there's more episodes. We'll have more on the horizon. But until next time, goodbye.